On June 11th, 2024, on Dragon Age's official YouTube channel, we got around 20 minutes of actual gameplay with some additional cutscenes of this mysterious sequel. Our gameplay begins with stating the following footage was captured from software in development and takes place very early in the game. The game runs on the latest iteration of the Frostbite engine, targeting 60 frames per second, with performance and quality modes on consoles. So while I have been skeptical of the release, we will get into the nitty-gritty of this gameplay reveal. So here are 5 secrets you might have missed from the Dragon Age gameplay reveal. Player choice and customization have always been the pillars of BioWare's games. The role-playing in this game is totally and always dependent on what you choose. For Dragon Age the Veilguard, this doesn't seem to be any different. It's totally expected. Appearance customization is incredibly detailed, with dozens of hairstyles and separate options for binary and non-binary pronouns and gender. BioWare has gone deep into ensuring diversity, even down to skin tones, skin undertones, melanin levels, and how skin reacts to the light. In the 20-minute gameplay, the player chooses a level 1 rogue class, with their backstory coming from the faction called Shadow Dragons who belong in Tevinter. There are 6 factions to choose from when you create your character. They are all tied to the northern deep roots in Thedas, which include the Grey Wardens, Veil Jumpers, the Shadow Dragons, the Lords of Fortune, a Morn Watcher, and an Antivan Crow. One question remains: if everything else is customizable, will our world state pass on to this newly added game? Well, apparently, you might be in for a shock. In an interview with IGN, Dragon Age the Veilguard game director Corinne says the ability to import your choice is fully integrated into the character creator this time around. Bush confirmed that you'll be able to customize your Inquisitor if you want to remake your protagonist from Dragon Age Inquisition. You can import choices from previous Dragon Age games using the tarot cards that revisit your past adventures. This mechanic will let you decide on the context and make new decisions. It sounds like BioWare is abandoning the Dragon Age Keep altogether, which in the past would allow you to export your world state from previous Dragon Age games into Inquisition through your save files. When IGN asked if the Veilguard would read saves from Dragon Age Origins 2 and Inquisition, Bush confirmed that it wouldn't. She says, "Technology is so different and we wanted it to be in the client." So unfortunately, I'm a bit skeptical on how this approach will work as intended. I suspect it's likely designated to make it easier for a new wave of players to get on board, but it definitely breaks me down inside because I know many other fans, including me, have worked really hard to make my world state my own. So I'm quite disappointed to hear this firsthand, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this disappointment as well. And lastly, your hub is similar to the Normandy in Mass Effect or Skyhold in Dragon Age Inquisition. It's called the Lighthouse. Your decisions will significantly impact each character, and your bonds with them will determine their growth and abilities. Well guys, the leaks seem to be correct. From its first full action gameplay, we see the player control Rook, who performs a big leap with a flared twist and attacks the enemy with a swing of its sword. There is also some sophisticated animation cancelling and branching. However, the health bars of the enemies and the players are smaller and quite long than expected for a game like Dragon Age. It's got more of a reminiscent and minimalistic look seen in God of War's combat. While this design choice deviates from their past, it actually kind of enhances its own new immersion by keeping the screen less cluttered and more focused on the action of the player. We see a smaller icon next to the player's bar equipped with 3 green healing potions, 8 equipped arrows, and an XP status bar at the end of combat. The only thing fans have tried to understand is where are the numbers for damage in these combat scenes. I suspect this is a toggleable preference from the menu to avoid distracting from the combat's visual in the reveal. According to EA's blog, it states that combat is another area that has a lot of depth to it. Dragon Age the Veilguard has fluid moment-to-moment combat. Plus, on the next notable feature, the player backs up to shoot with their bow, a new mechanic we haven't even seen before in Dragon Age combat. Although this character primarily uses a blade rather than specializing as an archer rogue, it raises the question of whether the character's roles might shift to range combat when distant from enemies. Our newly customizable ability wheel will help you turn the tide of battle at any time. It will allow you to pause the action, issue commands to your followers, use abilities, and unleash devastating combos. We're also giving the option to use some of your abilities via a shortcut. Although we can draw from the inspiration of similar combat wheels back in their Mass Effect games, it's hard for fans, including me, to draw some sort of decent balance of how this will actually work in Dragon Age. The BioWare team shows us a much more filled out combat wheel in this screenshot. As I suspect, this is a higher level character that has all of their abilities, including the characters, filled out in the wheel. At the bottom of the wheel are the player's character abilities. On the left are Harding's, and on the right is Balara's. The game also displays when combo opportunities are possible. For example, according to Eurogamer, one companion might use a gravity well attack to pull enemies together, another could use a slowing move to keep them in place, and then Rook can unleash a big AoE attack to hit them all at once. With so many abilities to use in the previous games with the touch of our fingers, we as fans don't really know how just 3 abilities on a wheel will determine a good range of combat. However, it was a little concerning to see that all of the characters we witnessed in this gameplay reveal were all just rogues, except for the mage Nev halfway into the gameplay reveal. I would have liked to see more classes, but that will probably be answered and maybe showed from their Q&A on June 14th. Right after that is where we get to have the first look of our newest Dragon Age's dialogue wheel. It's alright. They keep the same style from Inquisition, which links back to Mass Effect's wheel. First impressions wise on the wheel for me aren't the best, but it's still familiar with the DNA of Dragon Age. The part where it's not as transparent with its look lacks a little bit to its immersion. From breaking down the trailer in my previous video, we noticed that something is different with the design choices. Although the developers promise that there's a lot of dark tones and plots within the writing, the colorful paletted designs and chirpy attitudes of future companions just kind of breaks the immersion of impending doom on the setting of Thedas. As I already mentioned earlier, another drastic change is the total rework of the familiar Dragon Age combat. This combat being stripped to a new fresh identity ends up being a glaring choice from BioWare. These innumerous changes make it feel less like Dragon Age. If you know the saying, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like one, then it's probably a duck. While this game is still Dragon Age, after 10 years, it feels almost like something entirely new. If this was BioWare's intention, then that's fine, but the duck is no longer feeling like a duck. For instance, the gameplay reveals some of the enemies we face in the game, including the familiar Pride Demon from Inquisition, Dragon Age 2, and Origins. However, this time it has undergone a significant creative change. As for the characters, they did do a lot of work getting them to this point. Solus looks a little too cover girl for my liking, but it does well cinematically with the lighting. As far from what I can tell is that they are really hitting hard on becoming more of a mainstream RPG to target somewhat of a larger audience. A lot of this is generic in lighting, so I don't know if their intention was really to stay consistent with the lore and the imagery of Dragon Age. The subject contains the beginning of the game spoilers, so if you want to skip, you're more than welcome to and go straight to my review. According to Eurogamer, the prologue is actually quite lengthy. It begins with a narrative introduction from Varric, who provides some lore and explains Solus's motivations. The dwarf recaps the events of previous games and delves into why Solus is doing what he's doing, which just sounds like the cinematic we saw back on Dragon Age Day in 2022. The first hour of the game is described as a luxurious nighttime romp through a crumbling city. This is Minrathous. The game begins with a tavern brawl and a stroll through Minrathous in search of Nev Gallus, who has information about Solus. Eventually you will meet Harding and Nev, and later on Rook and the group enter a crumbling castle filled with ancient elven secrets, a treat for lore enthusiasts. And afterward, you finally teleport to Arlathon Forest to face a mini-boss fight with a Pride Demon. The sequence ends with a closing scene, marking the end of the game's opening mission. As we might have already guessed, Varric is a major character in the game. Some companions can die permanently based on your choices. When looking at this ending in detail, it's very plausible we might witness Varric's death. From the context of articles playing the demo, we can infer that Varric joins in on the party of Rook to convince Solas from doing the ritual. Given Varric's deep commitment to his friends and the world he cherishes, his readiness for a potential suicide mission would add to an emotional weight to the narrative, and the absence of his description among the next round of companions does indeed suggest a shift in his role, potentially moving from an active participant to either an advisor, or he truly is a tragic hero. And whoever Rook chooses to accompany them might be unable to protect Varric on ground level. Varric's death, should it occur, would undeniably serve as a powerful catalyst for the story. His sacrifice could be the pivotal moment that redeems Solas and creates a good urgency to kill these elven gods. However, it's also worth considering the narrative choices of the writers. While a tragic end for Varric seems plausible and would fit the darker tones suggested, there's always a possibility of the unexpected twist. Perhaps I have high expectations for the writers, who's to say? We were promised a tragic story, and Varric's hint of a dying wish might push us all over the edge to fight against the ancient gods. Varric's sacrifice would elevate him to something greater. Though he always wanted to be a hero and enjoyed watching his friends become ones from afar, this time he truly becomes one, albeit tragically. So here are my impressions of the latest gameplay reveal. It's evident that Dragon Age is evolving, moving away from its traditional RPG roots to attract a way for a wider audience. I've come to the terms early on with the fact that it won't feature the deep, intricate systems of classic dark RPGs, and now I'm just evaluating it based on its current objectives it's trying to achieve. And for what it aims to achieve, the game looks fantastic in its own new result. It seems to be fun, smooth, and visually stunning. If Bioware can fulfill its promises of branching narratives and meaningful choices, it could still be a highly enjoyable experience. Even with a more streamlined approach, a compelling story and well-developed companions can still draw me into this game. I mean, I've invested hours into Inquisition. My hours are probably ranging over 700 at this point. So these characters mean a lot to me. The gameplay trailer was a welcome improvement over the reveal trailer, although I understand the concerns of fans who prefer a more complex, hardcore RPG mechanic. If you're enthusiastic about the game, embrace it, but be considerate of fans who may feel differently due to the drastic changes. It's normal that we all have mixed feelings, and ultimately, if you're unhappy with the game's new direction, make your voice heard by not choosing to purchase it. But with that, we are going to wrap up 5 gameplay secrets you may have missed for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Let me know in the comments below about what you'll think for this new game. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.